Hi, I'm Jacob, and today we're going to talk about using orbits in Sisu Lab. Orbits are a great tool when you want to create a specific circular motion around your target. Unlike using path moves, where you can create spline motion through multiple keyframes, orbits are defined with 3 points and with a central target that always stays at the center of your camera motion. So let's jump into it and we'll show you how to use them in Sisu Lab. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that I get my robot into the starting position that I want. In this case, I've set up where I want my camera for my first frame in the orbit. In this case, the camera is centered up on our mannequin's nose so that when it orbits, it will keep the same distance around the mannequin's nose throughout the whole motion. Okay, so we'll start by adding a move. Okay, so here on the bottom right, you can see add move. And when I click on that, I have an option here for orbit. And when I click on it, it gives me the ability to set the different keyframes in the orbit. The first one's already been set for me because I'm in the position when I clicked orbit, add orbit. So now that I've got that first one set, I can go ahead and use the motion filters here and the joystick and trigger to move the camera to the next keyframe. So I'm going to go ahead and use the joystick to jog over to the middle keyframe. I'm going to pan the camera over so that it's looking generally towards the target. Now keep in mind the target will be determined by whatever that initial target was that I set. Okay, so much like target tracking and other modes like that, I need to get the target right at the start so that it stays on the correct framing throughout the whole move. Okay, so I've got the second keyframe set. Now I'm going to jog over to the final keyframe. And look at his nose. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then I'll click OK, and you will see a camera. In the camera channel, I have a new orbit move. If I ever need to edit those orbit moves, I can click on the icon right there on the timeline, and it will give me the ability to edit them. If I need to change my focus, I can also go to the joint page here. And if I'm a little bit unsure about what I'm doing, there's this info button that gives a lot of information about what's going on here. So now that I've set my orbit move, I want you to see how the second and third keyframes that I set in an orbit move, they're simply defining the circle, but not necessarily how close I am in that circle. What defines that is the initial keyframe and where the target is. So you'll see that as I go ahead and I run, and as I reset to my last position, which I'm already in theoretically, you'll see the camera will actually pull out to match the original radius of my orbit. So let me reset, and you can see it back up. So now the distance between the camera here and the subject, which is the nose on the mannequin, is the same as it was when the camera was over at the beginning keyframe. Cool, so now that we've got our orbit, we can go ahead and run it. I'm gonna run it a little bit faster here so we can see it. We'll run it in reverse, and then we'll run it forward. So, running backwards. Cool, perfect circle around our mannequin. And running forward. Great. So that's a basic orbit. Now, if we wanted to tie two orbits together, if let's say I wanted to create an orbit that starts here and now moves down and around, still looking at the same target, still orbiting around his nose. So in that case, again, I'm in the starting position of my next orbit. So I go down here, click add move, add orbit. It brings up the same page. Now I'm going to jog down. I've already got my first keyframe saved. I'm going to jog down to my second keyframe, which I'm going to come down here, looking up at our subject. We'll go ahead and add that as the second keyframe. Set position there. And then we'll end maybe up a little bit higher, looking down. Cool. So I'll add that keyframe there. Click OK. All right, we'll extend that out because it's a bit bigger move. Now, just like when I have two linear moves back to back, when I have two orbits back to back, I need to tie them together with a smooth transition. So if I click on the keyframe in between the two moves, I can go to Path, click on Curve Control, and I get this little graphic showing me exactly how those two orbits are going to come together. Okay, you can see there's a nice, well, it's not nice, it's a bad sharp corner there that we need to smooth out. So to do that, we're going to increase this edge distance quite a bit. So we're going to jump this up to maybe 150. And now you can see there's a red curve in there that cuts off that keyframe and makes a nice smooth transition between our first orbit and our second orbit. Now that I have that, I can go ahead and run this from the beginning. Looks like we might have some acceleration warnings, but we won't worry too much about that now. I think it will be fine. And we'll see these two orbits tied together now. 3, 2, 1, action. Cool. Now notice, let's look at our preview. You'll notice that the second orbit, it doesn't follow on a specific straight plane. In our preview, we can see how it comes down, around, and up. And if you look at this, what you'll notice is that we're following along, we're always on the same sphere around our target keyframe in the center there. You can see keyframe 6 in green. And so that's how orbits work. You can orbit around any of the paths that will follow around the sphere, going around that target. That's how, using orbits, you can create circular moves with your target centered in your frame throughout.